There's a Dizzy Gillespie quote where he says, people ask me what I'm thinking in my head, and they always speculate, hey, Dizzy, what are you hearing in your head? It's like, boo ba doo ba bop, whatever, like scatting jazz or whatever. He's like, no, I mean, what I'm hearing in my head is, ba ba doo de ba beep ba doo doo, So the joke is that he's hearing it incredibly loud and incredibly clearly.
But my thing is, I can hear lots of babadoo-deep dops, but I can't do it. Welcome to the podcast, Best Practice for Musicians, where we discuss how to practice more efficiently and play with more joy. I'm Judy Minot, author of Best Practice, Inspiration and Ideas for Traditional Musicians. Today I'm talking to Dallas Vietty. Dallas is a world-recognized accordionist and band leader, most well known for playing American jazz and European swing, like the music of Django Reinhardt, and also French accordion styles. But the reason that I really wanted to talk to Dallas today is he's also a teacher, and a teacher who gives a lot of thought and attention to helping his students grow. And I actually know this from personal experience because I took lessons from Dallas for a short time anyway. I'm sorry about my voice today, but I lost it. I don't know where it went. How are you, Dallas? Great to see you.
I'm doing good. If you're watching the video, it looks like I'm bundled up. I just thought I'd put on a nice fit for you today, although it's supposed to get down to -10, which is quite cold for this area.
So you're not in New Orleans, obviously. You're in
I'm not
Pennsylvania.
in New Orleans? No, I wish I was. Yeah. No, I'm in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Cold and snowy. So can you bring me up to speed on what's been going on for you lately? What's the most fun stuff that you're working on?
I just launched 2 weeks ago. I launched an online group class for accordion players, and this is a course that I have been thinking of for 2 years, and I've got like over 40 people, and there are some people that are not from the United States, which is really fun, and a couple expats. But we're working on jazz chords, and it's essentially the language of the Great American Songbook is what I'm calling it, although it involves, other tunes from around the world. But my big thing around that is that music is a language. And I thought about the system of A1, A2, B1, B2, the European language learning models or whatever they're called. I was like, I think I want to do that with my accordion teaching.
Oh, you're talking about like the way they measure like your level of French proficiency and your level of, are you a
Yes.
violinist? Are you A2? Are you B2?
Yes, so fluency in the language. So
Fluency.
fluency. So to be fluent in a language, if I go to another country and I'm like, oh, I got this trip to Brazil and I got to work on my Portuguese, and depending on my study, I might have a couple things memorized that I could say, and then because I've memorized those and I can speak them, I can probably hear them a lot of the time when they're spoken to me. And if I don't prepare at all, like a really terrible tourist, then I have my book or my iPhone or something, and I'm like trying to read off of that and so drag, and that is not fluency.
That's how I play jazz.
Yeah. So to be only able to read it, so we want to. I'm teaching everybody to sing the roots. So 1 2 3 4 5 4 3 2 1 2 5 2 5, a long 2 and a long 5 and a 1 1 2 5 1. Bridges 1 dominant to the 4, 2 dominant to the 5, and then it repeats. That's Honeysuckle Rose. I scrunched it together a little bit. But we learned to say that. That's the thing we say, and that's our musical memory holds that. I think for you as folk, I have your book right here. For traditional musicians,
Well,
I think
that
it's a
meant-
very, very normal thing. Much more normal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I find myself singing, even as I'm playing a melody, I can hear the 4, I can hear the 5. But then we don't have much besides 4, 5, and 1. So when you go to jazz and you're right, like you say, you get into the bridge and it's gone into the dominant, it's gone into the 5, and it's now the whole thing's in the 5. Or you're doing these 2 5 2 5s. Sorry for this. We can get very nerdy on my program very quickly, and I don't make any apologies for
I think the ideal is to keep our fluency of hearing and speaking up along with our fluency of our nervous system.
Okay, I'm signing up tomorrow. That is such a great idea. For years, I read the chords from the Great American Songbook, and I kept thinking, there's got to be some kind of all-encompassing, as you say,
But
language.
it's actually not one language. It's a whole bunch of different languages. So the music for the Great American Songbook is different than the language for traditional Celtic, tunes and that
Or
culture.
like rhythm and blues or any of that.
Exactly. Maybe we would say like the Roman language, Romanesque language. What is it called? Romance languages.
Yes. Yeah.
Romance languages all have a lot of similarities, but nonetheless, they're each their own unique language and have these idiomatic things. And the idea is just to learn to treat it as a language and to elevate the other parts of it so that when we are spoken to by another musician, we can understand what they said to us, So because
Right.
the medium of music is sound, the medium is not paper, it's not a visual medium. But I have discovered, and I'm not afraid to say that some people, you learn by watching, you learn by doing, you learn by da 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 da. I have discovered that I learn by teaching.
No, we all have to kind of get our act together when we teach. If you can explain it, then you really understand it. A lot of people just they shut down when you start to say, well, it's kind of helpful to know what the chords might be behind these tones of the melody, and they'll sometimes even kind of push back on it. Do you think that that's a question of, well, they speak in a different language, and so that is not as important in that language?
I have only compassion for the musician that each person sees themselves as being, right? And I know you do too. So that's my disclaimer. But yeah, I think as in all things, the more thoroughly we can investigate and study the person in charge of my money, I want to be, all expert in every single way and be really obsessed with this thing because that probably means they'll do the best job. So same with my idea of being a musician. We all have a musical intuition. If we only do with the mechanics or a thought, it's disconnected from the sound.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that like one of the things that I like to talk about with my teaching and think about is imagination and intuition. And so if we just say, I'm listening to this sound happening, what else do I imagine here? Like it's kind of like I see a blank wall. Okay, imagine a window. What do you see out that window? It's very much the same, and it's a muscle or a regular thing, just like everything else. It's a habit, I guess. And so the more we work on turning on our imagination, and so I would assert this for traditional musicians who might see themselves exactly represented, their archetype of player in your book is like, it's exactly the same for all of us, because you're making up your part, you're embellishing it, you're, trying it a different way, whatever you're doing, melody, harmony, etc. And like to imagine what is missing here, what could I do differently? Or, that is, I think that's the key. And then that gets us playing, which I think is like the biggest ethos is we want to sound like ourselves. And that's the only measure. We're always just trying to sound like ourselves, like our intended thing. And doing this, focusing on ideas in our head is us. We, regardless of our history, we're all alive as many years as we are, and we've had life's toils and joys and the wisdom we have and the friendships we have and our perspective on the world, which inherently is gorgeous. It's like all of us, regardless of very beginner or master musician, are part of a flower bed, a beautiful mix of different flowers. That's the easiest way to get there, is to imagine and cultivate that imagination and then bring up the other skills that allow you to get that out of your nervous system, which I'm miming an accordion.
Do you run into people who say, yeah, but I don't have any imagination? Or a lot of times people spend so much time trying to imitate others, they almost can't remember what they sound like.
The magic ingredient is being around somebody to show you it. And if we're thinking of this as a language, everybody knows the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it, to drop yourself in a place that only speaks that language and not your native language, and go, and like you're doggy paddling just to stay alive, so to speak. It's socially, and you are forced to learn it. You can move to New Orleans, I would say. That's about as immersive a city where you will hear and meet musicians every single place you go. Your neighbors,
Dublin.
grocery store. Dublin. Okay.
Been like
Great
that
to
for
hear.
me.
And then the next thing is just find people to play with. Even if they're very different levels of experience than you. And then lastly would be, if you can't get that zhuzh from these people, sort of informally, then pay somebody, find an expert that can and it's a great teacher is a lot like a great coach, I think. You got to have a lot of different skills. You have to understand where the student is, what they're comfortable with, where they want to go, understand them as their own self. You have to understand where you're at and how to break your teaching process down into as many steps as you can get them the next step to go there. And then you need to inspire them and zhuzh them up and show them and enforce upon them they can do this. You're beautiful. You want to do it. That's really the only necessary thing. You are spending your money on this hour of accordion lesson with me. That means you care about this instrument enough to do this. That's all like getting momentum going, but it can absolutely be gotten from the outside in those sort of three examples I just gave.
Do you ever have students come to you, they take the lessons, they love you, they think you're a great teacher. Something happens when they get home and they just can't get what they got out of the lesson. Like they can't get started.
It's very important to cultivate a can do. I can do this, and I feel excited because I'm so excited to have an hour tomorrow with my instrument because I know I am doing it and it's bringing me pleasure. It's like this positive circuit. So we have to get there. And if we've gotten there in the lesson, then something is happening outside the lesson. So then we just need to find out like what it is. Are you trying to like do your whole day of work and life or whatever you do, and then at 10 p.m. like try to go to the accordion? It's probably a bad idea. That's one example I might see. There are self-esteem issues that we all have too, which I definitely can be brought up, and that I think ties in with stage fright and other things like that, performance anxiety. There's an awful lot of emotions present, so it could be that as well.
Yeah, I think that music, for some reason, it just brings up a lot of that. I don't know why. I mean, probably because we're faced with so many amazing musicians in our lives. Like we don't live far out in the woods in a little cabin with no radio. We live in these environments where we can hear all this stuff all the time, and so it's very easy for us to compare ourselves to other people. And it's almost it's like it's great to have those examples, but it's really awful for self-esteem sometimes.
This is my new thing, sort of since the new year and a little bit before, is positive self-talk. And so every Monday I run a group class. In that class, we start with breathing in and out and relaxing tension and just trying to get ourselves to a place where we're playing the accordion and punctuating these wonderful fundamentals exercises with relaxation of tension. Just say, okay, effort builds tension, positive effort. I'm really trying. And then we develop this tension that's not needed there. In music, we tend to always accumulate tension and not release it as much. That's my opinion. And so then we actively cultivate dropping all the tension, completely relax your hands, bring them back up to the accordion with no preconceived tension there, and then find the amount of strength, which on accordion is quite a bit, especially the left side.
Yeah.
It's a very physical instrument.
Yeah, especially the big ones.
But at the end of it, I say, okay, let's all just appreciate the time that we spent here. The critical side of all of us, no matter if we're brand new to an instrument or not, is strong enough. I don't need to bolster that critical voice inside of my student. It's loud and strong, and it's going to tell you everything. And I don't want to try to like make that quieter. I don't even think that can work. But I do try to say, hey, let's actively cultivate appreciation. Just take this moment, put yourself in this mind frame, and try to say some nice things to yourself. The magic ingredient is feeling like you're able to do a thing. Am I able to do this? That's the number one, thing. And it's like depression. It's like if a person has ever experienced depression, that glimmer of like, that seems to be the most horrible thing about life. If a person is clinically depressed, is like, I don't feel like I can do anything, or the most important thing. So I don't know, just to kind of give a continuum. But I actively try to cultivate that, and for myself and for my students. We can do this. Let's feel like we can. Let's find teachers and music that makes us feel inspired, and our relationships with other musicians.
I was thinking back about what you said about the effort, and I love the way that you described finding the right amount of effort, because I do a similar thing in my workshops. It's different, but it ends up the same idea. And it comes back to something we used to do in martial arts when I was, I used to be an Aikido teacher for a long time, and the idea of minimum effort for maximum effect is thing that we talked about all the time. And in that case, you're not just playing an accordion, you're actually being attacked by someone who's often bigger than you, and you're actually defeating them. And sometimes you're, a person with gray hair and kind of small like me, and you can do it. But it's the same requirement is that you have to really go within yourself to find what is the minimum effort that I need to spend here, because when you're someone is jumping on you, trying to choke you, obviously there's tension, So you have to find ways to release that tension and only use exact muscles that are necessary. In music, you have a different kind of thing going on, which is that you're doing this for a long time. You're doing it for hours, over a week, and you're doing it for years and years and years. So you have a similar issue, which is that you really need to use the minimum amount of effort possible. And also you want to be able to be flexible.
That idea of staying relaxed and approaching the accordion very relaxed is something that I learned hands-on from studying with a couple amazing accordion teachers in France named Jacques Mornay and Nathalie Bouchex at the school called Cinema. And Natalie is the one who talks about relaxation, like of drop the tension. And then Jack's going, make the emotional tension and relax the emotional tension here.
To me, it always comes back to this. I want to make music that other people want to hear. For me, that's about expressing something. So I want to become better at expressing myself. And so that tension and release is kind of what it's all about. It's like storytelling. You're creating a moment and you don't know where it's going, and we might go here, but we end up going there, and oh, wow, that was incredible. And then it starts again, And so if you want to be able to do that, you have to be able to give everything to that. It can't be all bound up in your hips or your feet or something like that.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. In working out, they'll talk about recruiting muscle groups, like, oh, you're doing the bench press, but you're recruiting something else and you shouldn't, and, relax. But like, if we've got all this extra stuff working, I can't express love if my body is making all of this like strength or gentle, subtleness, and very assertiveness is words that I will use a lot, because both of those can contain a number of very opposite emotions, the subtle and assertive, but just that to be able to have like the repose and then to get wherever we need to go and then let it go again. It's kind of like a kinked straw is what I find. You put your finger at the end of the hose to make the water shoot further and stronger, but it's, and then you want to relax it.
But you want to be the person who's directing that at your own will, rather than it being something you have not only no control over, you don't even realize.
Yes, you don't even realize. Yeah. It's kind of like the question of what makes up our technique, or what is sort of our resting technique that we're at?
Yeah.
It's kind of invisible, or can be.
Well, so let's talk about technique a little bit. On the accordion, kind of like the piano, which was my first instrument, you have to learn to coordinate both hands. How do you help people to practice that kind of thing?
I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to the idea that we are building reflexes. And when we have two hands, there's more reflex in something than there is in the other thing. So maybe more reflex in my left hand playing oompa oompa than there is in my right hand playing some more complex melody, because the conscious effort that we have is limited. And so ideally, everything that's coming out of our hands, everything that our hands is touching, is thoroughly myelinated in our brain. So the fat is wrapping the nerves that are creating the nervous system movements, and it's automatic and it's happening.
You can look up myelination if you don't know what he's talking about, but it's a cool thing. So you want certain things to happen.
Yeah.
Like we're pattern making, our brains like patterns. So we want certain things to be patternized, kind of. But yet not too much, right? Because if you decide, oh, no, I don't want to do that, I'm going to do a chromatic progression here, you want to be able to do that.
Well, it's just accessing another pattern. So I would say that that's deliberate. So like what I do a lot with jazz, which is exactly what I would do if I were learning any other instrument in another language, where I'm expected to compose my part, make decisions in the moment based on my creativity. The only way to practice that, or that I know that works, is to take two different things and to deliberately switch. So I'm saying this thing, and now I'm saying this thing. And in music, it's a lot more complex because you are moving in time. So you have this things need to happen in the moment, and then there's expressive qualities. So there's a lot of stuff happening, much more than just changing between two words or phrases. Essentially, when you're practicing something that is what we think of as improvised, is you're just practicing possibilities. So
Right.
have I myelinated my nerves enough to play on the and of one here? And if I
Right.
haven't, then I'm going to trip and fall or make some errors some of the time because
Or
it's
am
a
I able to
probability
start
thing.
on the 9 instead of on the tonic? Am I able to
Exactly.
start an octave up? But also, I mean, you could translate this into kind of, more folky, simple stuff. I have a friend who teaches his students from the very get-go. You've got a simple tune, you've got a polka or whatever, play 2 measures of the polka and then play 2 measures of whatever you want and play 2 measures of the polka. And you can do that with anything.
I love that idea. I love that
Yeah.
idea. Yep.
To me, it's a shame that that doesn't happen more for young musicians today of all kinds in all styles of music, because there's no reason you have to stick to the tune, and there's no reason you have to, what's the word, atrophy your creative brain until such perfect time as the practice fairy comes and bops you on the head and says, "You're now ready to improvise." Like, no, you got to be doing that from day one. You could be. Why not?
Why not? Can I make a diversion, which is something that I wanted to share with you that's really exciting?
Sure.
So this idea of, an ideal student or an ideal pathway that involves creativity and creation, and how, that's relegated to maybe traditional musics, vernacular musics, I've heard it called, for those musics, but not for classical music, is true, but only for the most recent couple hundred years. And there's this whole new study just in the last 20 years. This is all extremely new research. They've kind of figured out through these pieces called Partimeni that are little musical puzzles to be realized. So you get a bass line, and then the student, it's a keyboard exercise. The student has to create the harmony appropriate for the style and the rules of the style, and then a melody. And they start very simple and they get incredibly hard. And so they've figured out that these, and this is told so beautifully. The main scholar is this guy, Robert Yerdingen, but he named all of these chord progressions. And he went through like thousands of Baroque composition. He's like, okay, here's Pachelbel's canon in D. Bum, 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 bum,
Bum, bum.
bum,
Yeah.
bum. That is known as the Romanesco. And then there are many others. I mean, there are like millions of them, but
Is this kind of like the rhythm changes of the Baroque era?
and it all was that,
Wow.
and the musicians were orphans and foundlings, and they had a bunch of these different orphanages that were dedicated to the idea of how can we help these destitute people with no parents, let's teach them a trade. And it just so happened that these 4 schools had incredible pedagogy, and they taught it as licks and chord progressions, and the kids were all singing and doing embellishments, and they all had this vocabulary. It's exactly like jazz. And they could all, hey, we need an alto part. Okay, I got this. I'll improvise it on my instrument. And they could turn around. The best of them could compose overnight for the mass that happened the next day. Music, that kind of music, like Bach, that stuff was improvised too. And that is chord progressions. And that is rules of harmonizing and
Right.
not very different than traditional Irish music or traditional, jazz music or any of that kind of stuff.
This music that we think of as being very written, and you have to play. Look, there's a mark here that tells you how loud it should be. You got to do exactly what it says when it's written down. It was not taught that way. It was
No.
not taught that way. It was taught as you're creating, you're writing, you're improvising.
I've heard it attributed to Beethoven, actually, that in some of the manuscripts of Beethoven, he says, written in there, the equivalent of, don't make up your own cadenza. Play the one I wrote here.
Because people did,
Because people did, yeah. They were like,
And
oh,
Mozart.
okay, all right, that's
All
what's
the
written. I'm
stories
gonna
about
do my thing.
Mozart are about him doing exactly that, and people thought, oh, he had such a gift, but I think it was also part of his training.
It was de rigueur, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of people who come from outside the Celtic traditions think, oh, but everybody's just playing the melody, but actually the improvisation is within a smaller kind of box, but there's lots of improvisation within the melody line. For every musician, some sort of inventiveness or creativity with what you're given is possible, and fun. So should be part of your daily playing.
Totally.
I have a thing I like to do. I call it free play, but I don't know, somebody probably else patented that already. I don't know. But I just sit down with the instrument, and I don't have any preconceived idea. I'm not going to play a jig. I'm not going to play anything I know. I just kind of mess around. I might even let the bow bounce on the strings or goof around. And every time I see myself falling into something I know, I try to get out of it and do something different. It's really amazing for your brain, but I've done this with a lot of workshops, and my students have a really hard time not falling into sort of a melody that they know, a melody that they're comfortable with. How do you kind of keep yourself fresh creatively?
Well, I just have to say, I find what you just that process incredibly inspiring. It's like, shoot, why am I not telling my students to do that? That's so cool. And so I'm going to steal all this stuff like a good teacher does.
I'm going to steal all your stuff, so you go ahead and steal mine.
Cool. I love it.
You must have times though, like especially when you're on the stage or you're in a performing situation, or I find this when I'm improvising on the piano that yeah, I've gone through the head, I've done about 4 or 5 choruses, 6, 7, and I'm done. I can't come up with anything else. Yeah. So what do you do to kind of jostle yourself into something new?
That's something that we do in jazz improvisation anyways. Like think about the different, you actively try to cycle through a whole bunch of different ideas. I played it this way, I played it that way, I played it, I'm going to use pentatonic language and try to sound like McCoy Tyner. I'm going to try to play really bebop kind of stuff and use tons of enclosures, or I'm going to not do any of that. I'm going to try to sound more swing or
octave melodies, anything. Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Even the most simple things, yeah.
And they're intellectual contrivances in the sense that like it's not my, the creativity God spirit thing, wherever the things come out of us from, right? That magic thing. That didn't make me think of that idea. It was, it was like a more of a concrete, not necessarily connected to my soul. But then that can, fan the flames, I suppose. I think that's the most important thing, is to ask oneself, what do I hear here? What should there be? What is not here that could be here? And to go through sort of a linear list, because we have the idea of an accompaniment, which could be present or not. We have the idea of harmonizing a melody or embellishing a melody. We have the idea of counter melodies, polyphony. We have the idea of all manner of rhythmic structures, like infinite possibilities.
If you can have in the back of your mind a list of things, well, what could I do here? Maybe on the fiddle I can come up with a few. Like, what if I made these bows as long as I could? Okay, now what if I bowed everything separately? Okay, what if I tried to find harmony notes? What if I, tried to do a couple of triplets in here? Change all the triplets to 5-note rolls, Anything that just kind of jogs you out of, and you're still playing the melody. You're still playing the same melody. What if I try to change the dynamics? What if I play the whole next time through as quietly as I can?
Play like you're 2 different personalities.
Yeah. There's a great thing that I like to do, I don't do it enough, which is to listen to somebody that you really like that has a certain defined style. Just listen to it. Usually when you're doing that, you're trying to, I'm trying to play the tune like that, and I want to play their solo if you're a jazz player. But instead, just listen to it for style and just let it sort of absorb, and then go play something completely different on the instrument.
Oh.
And then come back and listen to somebody else's style who's different, and then try to play that thing on your instrument. Just not playing the same tune so that you're not trying to imitate them per se,
I love it. That's really fun. It makes me think of a couple things. One, like my intuitive reaction to this situation of like a person that's like, I don't have the mojo I used to, or right now I'm in a lull, whatever. That's like me rephrasing. Is like, okay, well, let's find it. Let's find the ember that's in you. Like, what do you love? What kind of accordion music do you listen to? And like, let's go with that. And like, okay, well, listen to the music that you love, and that let's find the things that fan that flame inside of you, because it's there,
Yeah.
I can't do it, I can't get to where I want because I don't have the time. I didn't start early enough. I don't know what to do. All these things. That's the thing.
I'm not from a musical family. I didn't start when I was 6 years old.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing that we need to work on as much as we need to work on, the actual music properties.
What's the best practice tip you ever learned yourself?
I guess the best practice tip that I ever learned is that what we are doing when we're learning to move the instrument is we are building nervous system to be automatic. And understanding that gave me so many better answers and a pathway to go down. And with that, the idea that like the agent of change is conscious effort. So it's like, and our conscious effort for most of us mortal human beings is extremely small.
I'm a little weary of this sort of finger memory kind of, because it makes it all sound unconscious. But what I loved was that what you put on the top of it is that you do it by conscious effort.
The practice, yes. Yeah.
The practice. In other words, you're trying to create a pattern and you're doing it by focusing. It's not like when I was a kid, it wasn't me, but my friend told this story where her mother would say, "Are you practicing the cello?" And she'd say, "Yes, Mom." And she was down in the basement reading a book and doing all the etudes. That's not how you do it. You don't do it by paying attention to something else. You got to be really super focused.
Yes. Yeah. And there are other properties of music, you know, like there's the creativity that we talked a lot about. There's the ear training, you know, all that kind of stuff. There's the fluency in a language, which is a lot of other things. But just when we say we're practicing, usually it means with an instrument, trying to get our body to move the instrument to make the sound we want. And that is nervous system. And that's training the nervous system with reflexes and creating the neural pathways. You were talking about just listening to somebody play some music and then go play after that. So my version of this, which I kind of stumbled onto, and it's incredibly helpful, is to try to sing along with what you're hearing. So, and just set a timer, you know, put 10 or 15 minutes on it and just try to, and you're going to be late and you probably most of the notes that you're singing are not going to be there. But what it's going to do is it's very activated and fun. And this is not on your instrument. You're just going ba ba dee la la ba beep bo bo what, you know, whatever you're hearing, and let your mind go to whatever attracts it. So if you hear a fill or you're hearing a counter melody or like, you know, let it go wherever and just go until the song's over and then just start another song and just jump right in.
And so you're not trying to do the whole Charlie Parker solo. I need to do every note. I have to wait. Let me go back. I got to do it in. You're just singing along.
You're just
as
singing
well
along.
as you can.
Yes, yes.
I love it.
And you're practicing honing your concentration to stay focused and not zone out to anything. You're constantly in the moment, in the moment, in the moment, in the moment, in the moment. Learning something by ear and getting it perfect is, you know, we know that's like, I'm not suggesting you don't do that. This is just something else. But what happens at the end of it is you have spent with whatever musicians you've listened to in that time, you get this very deep understanding, because you've experienced it, of their phrasing and their timing, their unique feel. And that is enormously helpful, as it is also training your ear, because you're trying to pitch match on the fly immediately. But more so, you get this incredible association and attachment of just being with this musician in this hyper-focused way. It's really amazing.
Oh, wow. And you don't have to do it with jazz. You can do it with any kind of music.
Everything. It requires nothing, you know? It's
yeah. You could do it when you're going for a walk.
Doing the dishes. It might be hard to do the dishes, but yeah. And for the teaching, I could tell you about the teaching.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. The majority of my students are online, and it's been that way for a long time. But I found that the best thing to do with my students is to ask them to commit to 3 months at a time. They could take as few as 1 lesson a month or as many as 3 lessons a month. And that helps us. We sit down, I send an email, they do some writing over a cup of coffee or whatever about goals, and do a big, just everything that's in your head, genres, pieces of information, tunes, whatever. And then we go, okay, let's make a few performance projects out of this. Because having a goal of a performance is the thing, you know, that's the thing that we do. We perform tunes. So that could be as small as just making a recording that only I will hear, you know, or it could be a public performance, or it can be make a recording for a friend as a gift. And then we take the things that they want to learn and we say, okay, well, based on this tune or this performance project that you said was, I'm going to record this song. Okay, well, of all these other things that you have, which ones feel the most exciting for you to work on right now? So we're motivated by what feels fun and exciting, and what feels also urgent. So urgency interpreted in the definition of, if I learn this right now, my musical life is going to be a lot easier. Or if I don't learn this right now, I'm really making my musical life a lot more challenging. I try to find the intersection of ideas from that page of Brain Dump that have a lot of both of those. So we find those, and then we say, well, okay, of these that you're ready, you feel excited to work on, you're like, I can dig into this, and it feels important. which of these could we associate with this tune? So it could be working on scales or working on arrangement or learning this tune or, whatever. I want to be more expressive. I want to, fix my posture. I want to make my left hand better. And so then we have like a vehicle and a raison d'etre, and like then you have this deadline and this milestone. So we say, I reached the deadline. I did the performance. I evaluate the performance with appreciation and kindness. And I say, you know what, I could do better. So I decide I want to keep working on it, or that's enough time with that. And I start something fresh. And so this whole thing really, this little ecosystem of 3 months really helps me be the best teacher that I can. And I think that I help the people that I'm working with figure out what they want inside themselves. That's a lot of what I'm doing too, is helping people understand themselves better, and I think that's what a good teacher does.
And I think reaching a milestone is super important when you're playing music, like setting them up.
Yes.
And making them achievable. Once you've gotten there, you always will look back. I mean, I can look back at several of those and say, yeah, I recorded that. It's out there. It's on the internet. It's there, you know?
Exactly, yes.
So when you want to practice for your own pleasure right now these days, what is the thing that you're looking at?
Practicing my singing and listening to Frank Morocco and like working up my set. That's kind of a thing that I'm doing lately. Finding the jazz standards that have lyrics, which is when that genre was popular as a popular music, and they're wonderful, and you improvise on them anyways. I'm finding that just delightful and really fun, and I'm addicted to it. And like singing the ear training stuff too. I'm in a moment where I'm really inspired to get my ears a lot better, which is something my whole life I've had to work on. I was not born with a naturally good ear to hear things, and I didn't even know that I should. It was like, I can't even believe it. It's embarrassing, but it's true. Like I went even into college playing jazz and with not using my ears, and it's just like, that's insane. I can't even think how I did that, but I didn't know. It never clicked. So then my later adult life has been to kind of get that together, and I've done it, which is cool, because I learned how to do it, I can teach people a method. I'm like, no, you don't believe me. I couldn't hear anything, and you can do it. And here's the things that work, and here's all the things that don't work. Like people don't do intervals. Don't think N, B, C or whatever. Or don't think here comes the bride. That is useless.
No. You were talking before about that thing with singing, like being able to sing what you hear. I think of that as a two-part thing to being able to play a tune that you heard, right? It goes from something you heard to something you're playing. And
Yes.
It starts with you be able to sing those notes. And then the second part is taking what you're hearing and putting it on your instrument. And that's a sort of an ear training, right? It's a kind of a, I hear this lovely melody, and then can I do that on my instrument?
It's the inner voice, the inner music that we hear. There's a Dizzy Gillespie quote where he says, people ask me what I'm thinking in my head, and they always speculate, hey, Dizzy, what are you hearing in your head? It's like, boo-ba-doo-ba-bop, whatever, like scatting jazz or whatever. And he goes, no. He's like, no, what I'm hearing in my head is ba-ba-doo-de-ba-be-ba-doo-de-doo, So the joke is that he's hearing it incredibly loud and incredibly clearly.
But my thing is, I can hear lots of babadoo-deep-dops, but I can't do it,
Right.
So that's the practice you have to have, is kind of have a little, break it up a little, but kind of go babadoo-deep-dop and then play that. And that's sort of what I'm trying to give people, is sort of ways to break it down, ways to make it a little bit more digestible, I guess.
Yeah, your book is phenomenal. I mean, it's so great. And I told you that in France, they know about this.
Well, I'm having it translated into French, so maybe a few more people will hear about it in France at some point. So, well, Dallas, thanks so much.
This is wonderful. Thanks for letting me talk. I certainly can talk and talk and talk, as you see.
Maybe I can have you back. We can talk and talk and talk some more.
Cool.
All right, well, I can't wait. I'm going to say goodbye, and then I'm going to go sign up for your online courses.
All
Thanks
right.
so much. Take care.
Okay, bye, Judy.
Thanks for listening to Best Practice for Musicians, where we hope to provide inspiration for musicians who want to practice more effectively and play with more joy. I'm Judy Minot, author of the book Best Practice, Inspiration and Ideas for Traditional Musicians. For links to anything that was discussed in the podcast, to sign up for the newsletter, or to find my blog, you can find all of that in the podcast notes. And if you have friends who are musicians, why not let them know about this podcast? A special thanks to all my Patreon supporters. You help make this possible.